I'm still on my boundaries journey. They're very strong, but I still have moments where I'm like, why did I agree to that? But again, I have to question my motivations. Why did I agree to that? And going down that line of thought and discovering, what subconscious beliefs are driving that, that's how you create lasting change. For example, with boundaries, there are simple, because it's a process, like it could easily take years before you're really strong in your boundaries, but there are simple, quick wins that you can do regularly. So, for example, if you have zero boundaries, just saying no, if someone asks you to do something this weekend and you just want to rest, just saying no to that is a simple way to increase your confidence and motivate you to do the next bigger thing. So it can be a long process and it can be hard and difficult, but there are quick rewarding wins in the middle.
Hello, this is Kevin Pennell. Welcome to episode 141 of Toward a Better Life. And thank you, dear listener, for tuning in to this episode. We live in a world where there truly are some heavy-duty needs when you think about it, for harmony, balance, kindness, compassion, to name some of those. It's just a short list. And on so many levels, change must be evoked. Whether the changes touch us personally, culturally, spiritually, they all begin with each one of us as individuals. And that's what I like to share on this podcast from around the world, seeking others of the same spirit, heart, and mind, evoking that change toward wholeness and harmony, not only for ourselves, but the generations yet to come. This is your journey toward a better life. Please subscribe to the program if you haven't done so already through your favorite podcast platform, and keep following for weekly magical insights into earth-based spirituality, self-development, self-care, and also remember to support the program by leaving a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts or whatever the platform is that you would like to use. It only takes a moment to leave a review and allow me to extend an invitation to you to share your prose, your music, your poetry, or storytelling. And just visit my website, towardabetterlife.com. There are details there to contact me. You can also contact me to learn more about a free discovery call to help you on your journey. I'm going to talk a little bit about that discovery call after our interview today, too. And we also have some prior episodes there on the site, as well as learning opportunities. I've got some continuing ed classes coming up in the very near future, both in October and November, both in Western North Carolina and the area of Charleston, South Carolina. I offer other things outside the podcast, plus a few goodies to assist you on your journey. Contact me through my website or send inquiries, kevin@towardabetterlife.com. Now, I'm welcoming Angie Hawkins in for a chat this week. Angie is an inner glow coach, and we're going to learn about that for sure. And she transforms high-achieving spiritual women from chasing love and approval to radiating fierce confidence so they can finally feel happy, free, and loved for who they are. She works with women who've done therapy, read the books, tried the spiritual path, but they still feel like, oh, there's just something missing. Well, through deep inner work and identifying transformation, she helps them break the cycle of not feeling enough so they can experience real love, confidence, and peace without having to change who they are. Angie authored Running in Slippers, a raw and vulnerable memoir about finding resilience with emotional rock bottom being hit. And Angie has moved from Chicago to Hawaii on her own, jumped out of a helicopter and into the ocean, Navy SEAL style, bungee jumped, skydived, cliff jumped, and now she's diving in to talk with me about people-pleasing, boundaries, and being a functional adult. There's a concept. Stay tuned for an eye-opening chat. So in this episode, I'd like to welcome Angie Hawkins to the program here on Toward a Better Life. Angie, welcome to the show, and tell us where you are.
Hi, Kevin. Thank you for having me. I live in Hawaii.
Angie, you have quite a story, and I'd like to just kind of start off with that. Just tell us a little bit about Angie and your journey that you're working with.
So my journey starts in my childhood. I grew up in a household, among other things, the best way to describe it is that both of my parents were emotionally unavailable. And as an adult, I understand what that means. But as a child, I didn't have those tools to decipher the situation. So I developed a limiting belief very early on that I didn't deserve to be loved. And as you're probably aware, your beliefs dictate your behaviors, which dictate your experiences. So, needless to say, I struggled for many, many years because I was a people pleaser and I cared more about what other people thought of me than what I thought of myself. I overachieved at jobs. I was a perfectionist. The short version is I was looking for external validation to prove my worth because I didn't believe that I was worthy without it. And a turning point happened in 2017 because my boyfriend broke up with me and then my dad passed away. And I was 37 at that time. And I had spent 37 years running away from my feelings. But I was in such profound grief that it was impossible not to feel my feelings. But I didn't have the tools for emotional regulation. So I basically just felt miserable and unhappy for the rest of that year. And I didn't know what to do about it. So then in early 2018, I wanted to set some New Year's resolutions. So I actually decided that I wanted to change my life. I wanted to have a happy and fulfilling life. So I was living in Chicago at the time, and I decided that I wanted to move to Hawaii. And
Mm.
it was well intentioned in the sense that I was proactively making changes in my life, but it wasn't well intentioned in the sense that I was still reaching for things outside of myself to feel better because, a change of location does not change your problems,
Mm-mm.
which ended up being the case because I moved and I still had the same problems. And not only that, I developed a whole new set of problems. So, for example, this was 2018, so it was before remote work was the trendy thing to do. But my job in Chicago was very generous and allowed me to work remote in Hawaii. But right when I moved, there was a huge management shakeup at work that threatened my role. So the entire first year that I lived here, I lived in constant fear of losing my job. I had a
Mm.
really hard time making friends, which felt very isolating considering I didn't know anyone here and the only people I knew were thousands of miles away. And the other major thing that happened right when I moved here is that to prove how committed and all in I was on my decision, I bought a condo immediately. And then a month after I closed, which was only 2 months after living here, a shared pipe in the building backflowed into my bathroom sink and I wasn't home. So my entire condo flooded. And this was just like the first 2 months of living here. And
Mm.
then, and again, this was 2018. And so, like, the next 2 years was just like thing after thing after thing. Like, my grandma died, and all these other things were falling apart. And because I was reaching for external things to be my source of happiness, and those things were unraveling, my internal world was unraveling. And then COVID happened. So, I don't think I have to explain how that
Mm-mm.
exacerbated the situation.
No.
And the straw that broke the camel's back was the end of a relationship during COVID. And I had this moment, and I think we all have these moments where it's like you just feel like you can't take it anymore. But then layered on top of that was this feeling of sheer hopelessness because it's like nothing had been going well, and I truly couldn't see any possibility of hope for the future. So I intentionally overdosed on my anxiety medication and I was unconscious for a day and a half in my bathroom. I spent another day and a half in the hospital. And when I was released from the hospital, I called a friend and I told her everything that happened. And I ended with, I can't believe I didn't die. And her response was, it's not your time. And it sent a cold chill through my body because it was so profound and also exactly what I needed to hear in that moment because it helped me realize, okay, I think I have a purpose and I'm going to figure out what that was. And that was my motivation to actually get help the right way and lead a better life.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It is. I only wrote down 27 different things here. I one of the things I have no idea what it relates to, but what made you choose Hawaii from Chicago?
There was a reason. Well, I had been fascinated with Hawaii since I was a little girl because I
Mm.
had a Hawaii Barbie that had hair down to her butt. And also just from seeing various things on TV or whatever, I knew that Hawaiian girls had really long hair, and I just found that very fascinating as a young girl. But then as an adult, one of my friends lived here for about 5 years, and so I would visit every year. So that just fed into my fascination of wanting to live here. And I always had all these limiting beliefs as to why I couldn't. But my dad dying, he was only 63. And that was a good lesson to me that life is not too short to not do what you want to do.
Hmm.
So, because in my mind, I would always think, well, one day I'll live in Hawaii. And I was like, why not now? And it's actually interesting in hindsight because at that time, I really wasn't as courageous and confident as I am now. So that was a huge step outside of my comfort zone. So it was well intentioned in that aspect because I was getting out of my comfort zone. I had this intention that I was going to live a happier, better life there. But again, like I said, it wasn't well intentioned in that I was trying to move away from my problems.
Yeah, interesting. I say it's interesting because I have again just a passing thought. I don't know what your belief system might be, but I'm wondering if there's any kind of a past life thing going on. That's completely out of
Mm.
left field.
No,
And
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 I
what?
do believe in that kind of stuff. I do believe we're drawn to things for a reason.
Oh
I
yeah,
honestly have never thought about that, but that's a possibility for sure.
yeah. Because people ask, why did you move to North Carolina? And I my typical response is we moved here because we were pulled here. It was like there were no other options. We had to be here.
And that's a
And
good way to describe it, the pull, because that's what I
yeah,
felt.
yeah, yeah. And it's interesting though that all those things took place after you moved there. It's like, okay, are you sure you want to be here? You know,
Yeah, it was
and
like a huge test. And there was a part of me that was like, oh shit, I messed up. I made a mistake. I'm not supposed to be here. But in hindsight, it's like it put me on my path. So that could be another reason why I was drawn here.
sure, sure. You get everything taken away from you before you can begin to grow.
Ooh,
That's a
yeah,
pretty general concept. When you are completely bottomed out and you have nothing left to do, and the only way you can go is up because you're at ground zero. And so
yeah.
let's take everything away from Angie. Let's take away her relationship. Let's take away everything. And by the way, let's really mess up her condo just for the hell of it. You know,
Yeah. I mean,
wow.
because think about it, that would have been stressful regardless. Even me now, who has emotional regulation tools, I would probably have a little breakdown over that before I moved on and
Well,
took care of it. But
well,
yeah,
yeah,
like the timing of that and like the test that I had to endure, yeah, I agree there's a reason for everything.
yeah, yeah. But the other thing that I would run into here is, and we've discussed this. I say me and other guests have discussed this a few times, and even I have been down this path in my own life, and it took me years to finally overcome it. And that is the life of a people pleaser.
Yes.
And you wonder what what in God's little green acre made me that way. And you touched on in the beginning when you're saying that basically we are doing it because we have no other, I'm going to say, nothing else to grasp onto. And we have the sense of, I've got to please people because I don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
And so, and it can be anybody. People say,
Oh,
well, you're a
yeah.
people pleaser with your parents. I said, no, you're not. You're a people pleaser with everybody.
Yeah. How you do one thing is how you do everything.
Absolutely. So how did you overcome people pleasing? That's a good one.
Well, I think it was a part of my overall healing journey because after I got out of the hospital, again, I was like, okay, I'm going to get help. And traditional therapy had never worked for me. So I actually invested in myself and hired a coach. And he never said to me, okay, I'm going to teach you how to love yourself. Basically, he taught me, he calls it being a functional adult because a lot of our behavior patterns are based on survival strategies from when we were a child and a teenager. And as an adult, they're no longer serving us. So I learned how to, for example, set boundaries and having a practice of regularly setting boundaries and having those behaviors slowly started to reprogram my subconscious mind that I respect myself and I deserve to be treated a certain way. And so through changing my subconscious programming, I started to see my own worth. And that's when I started to, and people pleasing at its core is self-abandonment. So that's when I stopped self-abandoning myself.
Okay. Okay. And do you think uh, the setting of boundaries process is almost like a process of rehardwiring your brain in.
Yes. Because I used to think I wasn't worthy, I didn't deserve to be loved. So it's like, okay, this person's comfort or this person's feelings are more important than mine because mine don't matter. But then when I started to realize my feelings are important, my feelings matter, my time and energy is important, my time and energy matters, I started putting that at its highest priority. So yeah, it definitely is a change in subconscious programming.
And did it give you a sense of freedom when you first really started setting up with these boundaries?
Yes, like in my coaching program, boundaries is one of the primary pillars. And sometimes people are like, well, what does boundaries have to do with self-love and confidence? And I'm like, it has everything to do with it because boundaries are the highest form of self-respect. And not only that, like for me, again, my parents were emotionally unavailable, so I never felt emotionally protected. So to give myself the gift of emotionally protecting myself is so important and is so, it's like crucial for my mental well-being.
Say, do you think, Angie, do you think our culture is bent toward more people that are people pleasers than maybe before, or do you think we're just more aware of it now?
Hmm, that's a good question. I
Just,
think we're probably more aware of it now.
yeah. Only I say that because there are so many examples of that out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And granted, we there is the premise of mirroring, so we see this stuff in others because it's an area that I need to work on myself. And,
Mm,
and I think personally as well that the boundary aspect and the people pleasing is an ongoing process because
yes.
sometimes what I'll do now is I'll catch myself and say, wait a minute, what is my motivation for doing this right now?
Yeah, the biggest thing that helped me and continues to help me to this day is questioning everything you do and why you do it. Because same, like I'm still on my boundaries journey. They're very strong, but I still have moments where I'm like, why did I agree to that? But again, I have to question my motivations. Why did I agree to that? And going down that line of thought and discovering, what subconscious beliefs are driving that, that's how you create lasting change.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So it's a motivator for sure to
Yeah.
get us to get us to change, to get us to do that stuff. And there's a lot of cliches we're throwing around here, but one of the things that comes to mind is that change is never easy if it's worth it.
Yeah.
If we really are serious about wanting to make a change, then we'll make a change. But the question is, how long will we stick with it
Exactly.
before we give up, before we say, I'm not doing that. This is too freaking hard. I don't want to. I don't want to play this game anymore. I'm going to take my little trucks out of my sandbox and I'm going to leave.
And that's why, like with my coaching clients, for example, with boundaries, there are simple, because it's a process. Like it could easily take years before you're really strong in your boundaries, but there are simple, quick wins that you can do regularly. So, for example, if you have zero boundaries, just saying no, if someone asks you to do something this weekend and you just want to rest, just saying no to that is a simple way to increase your confidence and motivate you to do the next bigger thing. So it can be a long process and it can be hard and difficult, but there are quick rewarding wins in the middle.
And the thing is you have to make that first step, and that first step is no, just
Exactly.
no. And then the rest of it, I'm not sure if it's society or culture or just me, but sometimes I would say no, and the response is why?
Yeah.
Um, because.
And for
And
people pleasers, it's hard to say no without feeling guilty and over explaining.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm no problem at all with that. By the way, how do you feel? Are you okay? Is this podcast doing all right? I don't know. I'm really afraid that you're not going to like this. Oh my gosh. We could have a lot of fun with this one.
Actually, we should role play because there's older versions of me that I would be way more concerned about what you thought of me, and I would be performing to what I thought you wanted me to be on this podcast, as opposed to me now. I'm just showing up as I am, and it's like if he likes me, fine. If he doesn't, fine. Because you're not gonna mesh with everybody.
Role play would be fun. I've done that with students in classes before, and it's a blast to do that sort of thing. So I all I can think of is, and I have mentioned it on other episodes. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole very far, but I know the basis of mine is in a couple of areas, and it wasn't so much my. I was raised primarily by a single parent, being my father. And that started around age 9. So the formative years my understanding with psychology and culture and everything else is basically from 1 or 0 up until about 6, 7, or 8 years old. And if we are shaped then emotionally,
Yeah.
does it stick with us for the rest of our lives? It depends if you want to change or not, because I
Yep.
do believe we can shift that.
Yeah.
My dependency, if I can use that term, of being a people pleaser, I know came from the fact that my father and I moved a lot. He was transferred. Uh, he was kind of a troubleshooter for the company that he worked for. And one, he would put out fires and then he'd make sure that everything was good and keep moving along. And it'd be
Okay.
moving along just great. And we're having a wonderful time. I'm doing great in school and everything else. Oh, by the way, Fred, we
We're
need you,
moving.
we need you to move again. And I grew up in the sense of, if I stayed longer than 18 months, it was amazing in a community. 18
Yeah.
months. And so I was shaped that way because why? And this goes in along with the same concept, external validation. I want to be liked.
Yep.
I want to be appreciated. I want to be loved, and people would say, your father loved you. Yes, he did in his own way. But at some level, I still needed something because I needed that validation that I'm okay. And
At
then to
school.
add, yeah, and then to add to that, he spoiled me rotten. Now that had no
Um,
effect at all, did it? Yeah. There's my life story.
No, that
So,
makes a lot of sense, especially like communities are different. Like obviously from Chicago to Hawaii, but even like in Illinois, Chicago is so much different because it's so urban than a lot of other places in Illinois. So even moving 100 miles away, you might feel a need to wear a certain mask to fit in with that community. So that makes a lot of sense.
yeah, I was told by one person, or I wasn't told by them, I was told by a mentor of mine that they told them that I'm a chameleon.
And that makes sense.
Yeah, because I needed to dress the part.
Hmm.
And it was I did a Jeff Foxworthy one time though. I couldn't resist. I went out to take some pictures, and I was down in the Everglades, and so I put on my best photo, uniform. I put on my little khaki pants and my nice photo vest and carrying my bag of stuff and everything. And I'm walking out of this one little catwalk area, and the person looks at me and says, "Oh, are you taking pictures?" I couldn't resist it, Angie. I said, "Nope, just thought I'd put this on and wander through the woods. Keep going. Bye." So, I would always dress the part. If
Yeah.
I had a wardrobe that would just be killer because, oh, what's he going to dress like today?
Oh, yeah.
Hmm. Costumes, masks, anything I could do to be liked. Yeah.
So at what point did you come back home to yourself?
Probably around the time that my mentor helped me out. And this has
Hmm.
been 15, 20 years ago.
Okay. And it's like
And
an identity change, right?
oh yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Most definitely. It was an incredible shift that took place. And In a current edition on the podcast, people have told me I needed to do a solo version, so I did a solo version, and in that I was talking about how I'm always trying to do stuff, and then you have the person who is really an excellent um, mentor or an excellent friend because they will tell you what you don't want to hear. And sometimes what they'll do is they'll intentionally push your buttons. And he pushed buttons on me more than once. And I said on the podcast, and I'll say it again, I came so close to punching his lights out. It was unreal. But I needed to hear that, you know?
Yeah, I think the best friends will give you that constructive criticism.
Yeah. Because that's what it was. He wasn't attacking me. He was telling me what
Yeah.
I needed to hear. And it's just how did I perceive that? How did I receive that? And I would say if somebody's listening to this, if you're getting that kind of feedback from a coach, a counselor, a friend, just stop and breathe for a second before you blow off because and think, why did they tell me that? I dressed properly today. I combed my hair, what little there is of it. I made my beard look right. And they were such a jerk to tell me that.
But
So,
you just need that outside feedback though, because until you have the self-awareness to do it yourself. Because I remember at one point, because I used to be the kind of person, and I still do this to some extent, but I would, if I was going through a hard time, I would always isolate myself. And again, that originated in my childhood because my parents never really emotionally comforted me. So I learned to isolate myself when I was going through hard feelings. And I remember one time, this was even at work, something was happening and I didn't speak up. I didn't speak up. And then all of a sudden, I was having a conversation with my manager and I was like, oh my God, this is such a big deal, blah, blah, blah. And he pointed out to me, he's like, you always wait to speak up about things. He's like, you don't have to isolate yourself. He's like, next time, speak up sooner. And I truly did not have that self-awareness until he pointed it out to me.
hmm yeah, we need to hear stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think that people pleasers and the idea of external validation, it certainly goes hand in hand because if you don't
Yes.
believe that our society is externally motivated, you need to take another look at it.
Yes.
How do I
I think
look? Do I look okay?
it's so externally motivated that even, and you probably have this experience, like I still sometimes feel the pull to seek that external validation
No, I
and
don't.
to reel myself back in. Yeah.
Next lie. Oh yeah, because and I think the only difference is when I can make myself or keep myself in a space where I can sense something isn't quite right. And
Yeah.
I will stop before I go further. And I'm not going to say that, oh, I don't ever make mistakes anymore. That's not true either
Yeah.
because we're going to keep learning certain lessons. We're just going to learn them. We're going to have to face them over and over and over and over again, and then some more until we really understand what it is we're supposed to learn from that lesson, right?
Yeah. And then once that lesson is learned, there's other lessons.
Oh no, really? That's not fair. I told you before, I'm going to get my little trucks and I'm going to get in my sandbox. I'm going to leave. Running in Slippers. Let's talk about your book a little bit. That sounds like a really cool book. Running in Slippers. When did you publish it and tell us a little bit about it?
I published it in 2022. So, Running in Slippers, the how I came up with the title, the actual story is the introduction of the book, but overall what it means, I live in Hawaii and flip-flops are called slippers, so it really means running in flip-flops. And running in flip-flops is a metaphor for life because running in flip-flops and in life, it can be scary, dangerous, and painful, but it can also be adventurous, fun, and playful. And what it is, it's a memoir. It covers a train wreck period of my life, basically all of the details of the overview that I talked about in the beginning. It starts when my dad passed away. It covers overdosing on the pills and a little bit of my journey afterwards. But the idea for the book came about in the period after my dad died because we live in a just get over it society.
Hmm.
So after a few months, people just expected me to be over it, and I was not over it. And it's like you go on social media and everybody's posting all these happy pictures and how great their life is. And even in real life, I felt like everyone had on their happy face and was pretending everything was fine. And I was in this profound grief. And I just remember thinking, there's no way that other people aren't going through hard things. So I had the idea for the book because it's really vulnerable. And the reason I wrote it that way is because, like, we all go through hard things in life. So the whole goal in the book is to connect through vulnerability and actually encourage conversations about the hard things we go to through. But at that time, I was not courageous or confident. So the thought of putting myself out there like that was extremely terrifying. So it was just an idea that I had. And then after I overdosed, on my very first call with my coach, he asked me if you could do anything with your life and didn't have to worry about money, what would you do? And the first thing that came to my mind was the book. And I was like, oh, I have this idea for a book, and I think it would really encourage real life conversations. And I want to do a book tour and have these safe spaces where people can just talk about the things that are really happening in life. And when I finished, he was like, did you see how lit up you just got about that? And I did notice my state change. So I was like, maybe this is my purpose. So that's what really gave me the motivation to really write it and publish it.
Okay. When's the next one?
I did start writing another one, but it may
Good.
be a few more years.
Okay. All right. That's this is my book. I wrote
Yeah,
my
but it's
first.
like documenting stories, right? So there's different formats that you can use. Mine is writing, some people it's talking.
Yeah, yeah. I did write my book, and I was in the process of writing a second book, and got tired of hearing the word no. Even though as a writer I understand that, and I
Yeah.
write blogs and stuff. And if you can't handle no, then you need to find something else to do.
Yeah.
It's just it's part of the game. It's part of the
Yeah.
routine. And it doesn't mean that you're a bad writer. It just means that you haven't found the publisher yet. That's my,
Exactly.
yeah. Like, did Stephen King say that? I don't know.
It's maybe you should coin it as your own quote.
Oh, so what when you're working with people in your practice, I'm going to call it a practice because that's what you do. What do you use as your, I'm going to say some of your tools? Like, do you see people in person? Do you see people virtually? How do you work with that?
I see them virtually.
Okay. What did we do before COVID?
That is a great question. I have no idea.
Do you see people at all in person, or is it all virtual?
Yeah, I've not had any clients in person.
Okay. How's that work for you? Must be okay.
Yeah, it works. I would actually prefer in person because especially at the beginning because sometimes it's hard to get people to open up because especially in the beginning there's always like a root issue. So for instance, people pleasing is just a symptom of the root issue. So sometimes it's hard to get people to open up about because you need the whole story to figure out what the root issue is. And again, the root issue is in your subconscious belief. So you want to, the recommendation is to, I'll call it prescribe behaviors that would change that subconscious belief. But for me, it's harder to read energy virtually. Like I can
Hmm.
usually get there, but it comes from a line of questioning that I feel like could be made shorter if I was able to read someone's energy better in person.
Okay. And I know that in your site, you mentioned about you call yourself an inner glow coach. What exactly is that?
Basically, it's a self-love coach, but the reason I call it Inner Glow Coaching, my current coaching program is called Shine from the Inside, and it's based on this concept because I feel like a lot of self-help is marketed as you need to fix something about yourself. So the Shine from the Inside concept is based on that we're all born with this light inside of us. And as we go
Hmm.
through life, society or family systems or whatever, they're like, oh, but you should be doing this. You shouldn't say that. And that slowly starts dimming our light. And that's how we start wearing these masks and people pleasing and whatever. So the whole shine from the inside concept, it's not about fixing yourself. It's about coming back home to yourself and being who you really are and lighting yourself up. And that's where the self-love comes from shining your light and being your authentic self.
Being your authentic self and reconnecting with the real you.
Yes.
Yeah. And sometimes reconnecting can be scary.
Yes, because like we were saying before, it is an identity change because you spent your whole life performing for other people, and now all of a sudden you're discovering who you really are.
Yeah. Yeah. And you find out that I kind of like this person.
Yeah, and
Why?
that's
Go on.
no, I was just gonna say that's the funny thing because I used to hate being alone. When I was performing and masking, I hated my own company. I obviously hated myself. And now it's like, oh, I love my own company. I love myself. So yeah, you learn to fall in love with yourself is another way
Yeah.
to look at it.
Yeah. Is shining from the inside, does that include vulnerability?
Yes,
Vulnerability. Nice.
because vulnerability is who you really are, right? Like if I say, because I think sometimes people are afraid to say that they're scared, so they put on a strong face. But if you are feeling scared, your feelings are valid and that's who you are, and there's nothing wrong with that. So it definitely includes vulnerability.
Okay. And do you have situations where people will come to you for a little bit and then just they kind of fade away? Or do you, I'm looking, I guess, for what is an, if there is such a thing as an average for somebody to really make some moves forward, or are they all different?
They're all different. I do have an introductory call with clients because some people are extremely, even though they think they want help and they say they want help, they're extremely resistant to open up. And again, if I can't understand what the root issue is, there's not much I can do to help them. And also, if they're coming at it with that resistance, then they're less likely, because again, I'm going to work with them on changing their behaviors. And if they're that resistant, then they're not going to be very likely to follow through on even just building those daily habits. So I do have a screening process at the beginning because I just don't think it's a good fit if someone is that resistant. But once people are in the program, again, because I intentionally put some quick wins in the initial weeks that gives them the confidence and motivation. I've never had anyone just stop or, and trust me, there are challenging times because progress is not linear. But again, like we have weekly calls so we can talk through it and it's fine. So I've never had anyone just quit because they usually get that initial confidence and motivation boost to keep going.
And is there a time frame about how long it sometimes takes? I'd say on an average. I'm pulling this from my own experience that in general, I found that in most cases, you're going to see some kind of an appreciable change anywhere from 2 to 5 visits. Is that pretty much any kind of a, I don't know,
Yeah.
touchstone that we could go by?
It depends on the person. I personally think it takes at least 3 months. So that would be like having weekly calls,
Okay.
the duration of 3 months. But again, I'm working with people who don't have practice with boundaries. I also do a lot of intuition work to help people tap into their intuition. So, and again, there are quick wins within that, but to really drive a change, it takes longer because most of my coaching clients are actually 6 months because that really creates lasting change.
So you have a lot of opportunities to work with people, and it's commendable for what you're doing. The question I have is do you work with everybody? I mean, do you work with women? Do you work with men? Do you work, how does it work for you?
So basically, I market myself toward high achieving women who are people pleasers and have that tendency to seek external validation because they don't feel worthy without it. And so far, that's the demographic that I have worked with. I'm not opposed with working with people outside of that demographic, but I would only work with them if I felt that I could help them. So, for example, people have asked me, "Do you work with men?" And I haven't yet, but if I had a call with a man and I didn't feel like I could understand his experience or I didn't think I could help him, I know several really good male coaches that I could refer them to. But if it was something I did feel like I could help them with, I would be open to working with them.
Okay. All right. And at some point, have you ever been working with someone and you say, okay, maybe this is just a little bit out of my wheelhouse. Maybe they do need to have a professional counselor or they need psychiatry or whatever. What do you do with them?
And again, like that's why I have the screening process up front because you can usually, if someone has like a high level of trauma, you can tell that like when you're digging into their past and their history, you can figure that out immediately. So someone like that, I would refer to a specialist, some kind of, yeah, like psychotherapy or a therapist who specializes in that because that is not my level of expertise.
Okay, that's good to know. Because it speaks to your integrity, and sometimes people have talked about, well, aren't you a little apprehensive about referring people out? You could lose that client. I said, it's not about me losing a client. It's about that client or that person getting the help that they need.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the name of the game is what can I do to help this person? And if I can't, who can I send them to? Right?
Exactly. Especially someone who has a high degree of trauma. And if I truly don't think I can help them, I'm probably just making it worse by delaying them from getting the help that they need.
Yeah.
So I don't
Yeah.
want to contribute to anyone's trauma.
Yeah. Yeah. And that could very easily.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, in in doing the work that you do, have you run into, I'm going to say, have you run into any what I would call a home run? Like you had somebody that, they were a people pleaser and they were just, it was a mess, but now today they're a whole lot different person.
Yes, but it comes from, because we touched on this in the beginning, people have to want to change.
Hmm.
And she had been an alcoholic and her life was spiraling out of control. And she had actually stopped drinking right before she came to me, but she was highly motivated to change. So that helps a lot because I can only do so much. Like
Hmm.
I guide people, but it's up to them whether they actually do the exercises or not, whether they show up or not. So she was very highly motivated to change. So yes, I would call her a home run.
Yeah. And I've run into that myself with stuff and as like in hypnotherapy, if somebody says, "Oh, I want to be hypnotized." Why do you want to be hypnotized? Well, I've never been hypnotized. Okay. What's your motivation?
Yeah.
Besides, it was the same thing with people that wanted to have a sweat lodge. Well, they knew that I did sweat lodges and I poured sweat lodges. So why do you want to have a sweat lodge? Well, I just want to do a sweat lodge.
Wait,
Why
what
do you
is
want to do a
that?
it is a, oh my. It's
I didn't know this
basically,
about you.
yeah. So sweat lodges, it's a lot of times it's identified to indigenous people of North America, Native Americans. But a sweat lodge is an opportunity where a group of people get together and they put hot rocks into a closed area, and basically you sweat out stuff, and the
Okay.
stuff that gets sweat out is pretty phenomenal. Where you can go some emotional roller coasters, you can detoxify yourself. It's a deeply spiritual experience that you can do. Usually, if I ever had somebody that wanted me to do we would say pour a sweat for you. I did want to know why. If you just want to do it just to have the experience, when you figure out what you want to do, you come back and see me. Otherwise, with all due respect, I don't have time for it
Okay.
because it is a deeply moving and spiritual thing. And I'm a druid now. Have been, I discovered after a while, I've been a druid all my life and just never really acknowledged it. But among the Celtic people and even among the Scandinavians, have you ever been to a steam bath? Do you know
Yes.
that if you look at the history of steam baths, they actually had a foundation in spiritual wellness and spiritual change? It's a
Okay.
very it's a very powerful thing
I'm
to
writing
do.
this down.
Yeah, but it goes back to the foundations. So people would want to do something because, oh, I've never tried that. And we have a society that bungee jumps. You know.
I've been bungee jumping.
Yeah. And I'm going, why? Well, I jumped out of planes. Why did I jump out of a plane? Because I wanted to. I never tried that. Sounds like a good idea. We'll give it a shot. I did it twice. I'm not going to go any further than that. But, we live in a society that we want, goes back to that emotional, the not emotional unavailability. It's more of the external validation. I want the thrill. I want the dopamine.
Yeah,
I want the zing. And that's find out why it is that you want to do what it is that you want to do and then go and then figure it out.
yeah,
Right. So there,
agree.
there was a rabbit hole.
Yeah. But it leads back to question everything you do and why you want to do it.
Perfect. Yay.
See,
Well
it
done,
ties in.
Angie. Was that a
We're
role
still on
play?
theme.
You role played me right into that. I didn't even see it coming. Well done. Good job. So, uh, what do you do to create a better life for yourself, Angie? Got that one for you.
Well, what I do now is my main thing that I do is I have a practice of doing one thing at least one thing every day that brings me joy. And
Mm.
for me, because I'm fortunate enough to live in Hawaii, I go surfing almost every day. And that has truly changed my quality of life um, in so many ways. But one of the ways was I always used to think, like, oh, I want to retire early so I can have freedom. Like that was like my story that I would tell myself. And I think I was reading a book or something about money, and it was like, well, how can you, because everyone has a similar story like that. It might not be freedom, but we have these reasons why we want money. And it's like, how can you give yourself that without money? And this was early on because when I moved from Chicago, which is very like work hard, play hard. So Monday through Friday, you don't do anything fun. You're just focused on work. So when I first moved here, like I wouldn't even go to the beach or anything after work because it was like, oh, you don't have fun Monday through Friday. That was just my mindset. And so when I heard that, I realized how much I was limiting my own freedom by my own mindset. And so once I started surfing, I was like, okay, I'm going to surf as much as I can, which ended up being now it's like almost every day. And it's like that gives me freedom, and I don't need money or something external outside of me to give that to me.
That's beautiful. That's great. Is there any other thoughts that you would want people to come away from this podcast with? Just something to really hold on to? We have a lot of stuff we've
Yeah, I know
covered,
there's
but
so many things, but what the point I try to drive home is it's because I felt this way, so I'm assuming there are at least some other people who feel this way. But when I was in that people pleaser mode and striving for external validation, I I felt exhausted, but overall, I just felt really unhappy and unfulfilled. And it felt like something was missing from my life. But even worse, I didn't really feel like I deserved anything better because I was like, this is how life is. And now that I'm on the other side and my primary feeling is feeling happy and fulfilled, I realized how available that was to me all along. I just wasn't tapping into it. So, the message I try to preach is that if you're feeling unhappy and unfulfilled, that is absolutely available to you. You just need someone to help bring that out of you and point you in the right direction, like what happened with me.
that's excellent. You've got a website. What is your website?
My website is runninginslippers.com, which is obviously also the name of my book. So there's information about running in slippers. It's available on paperback, Kindle, an audiobook, and the audiobook is in my voice. I know people like that who listen to audiobooks. And there's also information on my coaching program, Shine from the Inside. And I do offer a free call for new clients. It's a 60-minute call. So
Hmm,
we will work on whatever you're struggling with. We'll work through as much as we can on the call. And then at the end, I'll give you recommendations because, again, my coaching program is not for everyone. So if you need another form of help, I know other coaches, I have other resources, so I can definitely refer you to someone who can help you if I am not able to.
excellent. Great. Well, let's see. What time is it in Hawaii right now?
It is 9:25 a.m.
So you need to go out and play.
I'm going
Yeah.
to work a little bit. My quote unquote lunch break is when I go surfing.
Okay, okay. Go have some freedom. Go enjoy your day. And Angie, this has been delightful. Thanks ever so much for joining us today on Toward a Better Life.
Yes, thank you so much, Kevin.
Well, there's the closing music, and that's our show for this week. Thank you for tuning in, and thanks as well to Angie Hawkins for some actionable thoughts for setting our boundaries, overcoming people-pleasing and habits, and becoming a functional adult. There are links in the show notes for connecting with Angie, purchasing her book, and finding her on the web. Thank you, dear listener, as well, for tuning into the program. You're very, very special to me. As always, if you're seeking insights and advice on how to create that better life for yourself, if you'd like to dive into self-care, self-development, experience hypnotherapy, or distant shamanic work, Reiki, drop me a line, kevin@towardabetterlife.com, for your free discovery call. In that discovery call, we can discuss your goals, set some plans for achieving them, and moving forward with your journey toward a better life. You can also visit my website, towardabetterlife.com, for past episodes, blog entries, ways to enhance your spiritual journey, upcoming events, like one next month, and I'll be offering 2 continuing ed classes for massage therapists, both on October the 11th in Western North Carolina and November 8th and 9th in Charleston, South Carolina. The details are in the website. There are also a few products to assist you on that journey in my website as well. So write to me, kevin@towardabetterlife.com, or just visit my website and get in touch. Please subscribe to the program through your favorite podcast platform and leave your review on Apple, Spotify, Overcast, whatever your podcast platform might be. It helps to spread the word about the podcast Toward a Better Life and help to create, a life that's better for each and every one of us. As always, remember, if you'd like to share your story, your music, your prose, or if you want to be my guest, write to me, kevin@towardabetterlife.com. Well, that's it. Until next week, enjoy your journey toward a better life.